In continuation with my breakdown series on That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Season 3, we'll be taking a look at episode 7 in today's video, which is titled Saint and Demon Clash, and it adapts the storyline from Chapter 4 Second Confrontation and Chapter 5 Saints and Monster Collide of the Volume 7 light novel. The episode mainly focuses on showing Hinata's journey into Tempest along with a reaction to everything and how the other Holy Knights were manipulated by the 7 Celestial Sages into attacking Tempest. As usual, there are some content from the light novel that were not adapted into the episode, so I'll be discussing about those and provide insight on certain scenes as well. So a spoiler warning for anyone that hasn't watched the episode yet or might find the cut content information I mentioned to be spoilers. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. To start, the episode begins by having Rumpai recalling his first meeting with Hinata, but is then followed by Hinata recalling the interaction she had with Arnold, Bacchus, Litus, and Fritz, who chased after her back in the Ingrescia Kingdom. However, not much can be said about this particular sequence, since the intent of what they said in the light novel was still conveyed in the episode, but she was definitely more dismissive about them following her as compared to the anime, where she actually seemed glad they came along. Additionally, the light novel provided a more detailed account of their journey from Ingrescia to the Bloomer Kingdom, and it describes how they took 10 days to reach the city because the heavy snowing made the roads difficult to move through, and many inns were fully booked as well, which is why we see them camping outside in the anime. It also goes on to explain how exhausted they were once they reached Bloomer, since all they ate along the journey were military rations, so they immediately searched for lodging in the city. And their conversation about the amount and quality of the merchandises that were currently on display, along with acknowledging the fact that the city was slightly prospering because of their trade relation with the Tempest Federation, pretty much followed the light novel. Moving on, Hinata being surprised to find a restaurant selling ramen was unique to the anime, but it does skip the part in the light novel where they order the food. Basically, the waitress will offer them the menu and explains to them the type of ramen they offer in the restaurant, such as 3 different flavors, miso, soy sauce, and pork bone, with 2 broth choices, either heavy or light, and Hinata will immediately order the pork bone ramen, and she chose the heavy broth along with gyoza and rice. So the Holy Knights ordered the same as well since they were not familiar with the food items. And what caught her attention was the fact that Rumpai has managed to introduce the idea of disposable chopsticks to the Tensura world, and she was concerned that the Holy Knights might not know how to use chopsticks, so it was nice they included the detail of them struggling to use chopsticks in the episode. Regardless, when the food arrives, the reaction of tasting the food in the anime was essentially the same as the light novel, although the episode definitely plays out the comedy, like Hinata stealing the last gyoza from Fritz, along with her telling Litus to not drink the broth because it will make her fat, and seeing the jealous response of Litus to make it even funnier. Adding to this, there was a small detail in the light novel about the waitress stating that the restaurant was owned by Meow Mouse, and the reason for the limited stock on gyoza was because it was difficult to eat and somewhat expensive, which wasn't included in the anime. Anyways, the next morning, Hinata and the Holy Knights departed for Tempest, but they soon realized how easy it was to now travel through the once harsh and dangerous path into the Great Jura Forest, and it's noteworthy that the anti-magic barriers were created by the same device that Vesta and Kaijin proposed in episode 4, and the same can be said about the Hobgoblin patrols that Rumpai arranged to be implemented in the previous meeting episodes, so here's the payoff to the world building that some people complained about. That said, the following explanation of the rules and amenities that are mentioned by the Hobgoblin Patrol would follow the light novel, although Hinata does provide her own opinions on the fact that even though the units of measurement in the Tensura world was different, Rumpai has decided to simply ignore that by still using kilometers in order to indicate distance. In addition to that, Hinata was even astonished by the placements of the amenities and how well planned it was. She concluded that Rumpai likely estimated that a normal person would be able to cover around 5 km per hour on foot, assuming that travelers can move 8 hours a day on foot. And that's why an inn is prepared every 40 kilometers. Now with that explained, Hinata and the Holy Knights soon arrive at one of the water fountain locations, but she was utterly baffled in the light novel because the place resembles a typical campsite. Not only that, the fact that Rumpai was providing free water to travelers in a dangerous place like the Great Jura Forest, and implemented an honor system following Japanese ideas made her almost laugh at how crazy and bold it was. She was even annoyed at how illogical and outrageous Rumpai's behavior was, because humanity in the Tensura world has always tried so hard to stay alive and survive, and yet someone like him just comes along to completely turn the natural order of the world upside down, all for his own personal comfort. It was for this reason Hinata said that she was irritated in the anime. Furthermore, when Hinata recalls a conversation with Yuki in the anime, it was quite brief as compared to the light novel, so to explain, Yuki not only told Hinata that Rimuru was someone who genuinely desired to form friendly relations with humanity, but he also advises her against making Rimuru her enemy. However, Hinata did not consider Yuki's words to be worthy of attention at the time, but she did recognize that thanks to Rimuru recreating brandy in this world, she was able to enjoy brandy cake again. Having said that, Hinata's group continued to travel for another 2 hours until they stopped to rest for the night and discuss about their observations on the monster nation so far at one of the inns like we see in the anime. And what they talked about were exactly the same as the light novel, although Bacchus did have more to say. Mainly, he was stating how the safety of the Tempest roads meant that people no longer have to fear monsters and worry about injuries or sickness while traveling, since there will always be people around to assist them, or merchants having to waste money by hiring mercenaries for protection against bandits. And this will explain why so many people chose to visit and trade with Tempest as compared to the Farmer Kingdom. But it was also for this reason that causes Hinata to be suspicious of Rimuru's previous message, because revenge doesn't seem to be something that he should be focusing on right now. Nonetheless, in the light novel, when Hinata notices a monster staff learning from the human staff about currency and seeing how friendly they were towards each other, it briefly causes her to reevaluate the doctrines of Luminism because she thought the idea of coexistence might actually be possible. Also, this wasn't mentioned in the anime, but just before Hinata along with the Holy Knights arrive in Tempest, they apparently stayed at one more inn, and this one seems to be more luxurious because it even has a bathhouse. In any case, going over to Tempest, Rimuru and the others were still following Hinata's movements, while also waiting for arrival, with most of their conversation in the anime being similar to the light novel. Furthermore, they revealed that Shion has already deployed her forces, and Soe will soon inform Rimuru that she has intercepted the 100 Holy Knights, so Rimuru assumes that Hinata really does plan on being hostile towards Tempest. And so Rimuru activates spatial domination, teleporting himself along with Benimaru, Soe, Albus and Sophia to Shion's location before Hinata arrives. But switching to the perspective of the 100 Holy Knights, we see they are being led by Leonard, Zester and Guard, along with a flashback explaining why they defy Hinata's orders to deploy. To explain, not long after Hinata left in Gracia, 3 of the 7 Celestial Sages had approached Leonard to inform him that Hinata has been secretly working with the Demon Lord Valentine all this time, and now she plans to betray them by meeting Rimuru. And in the light novel, Leonard was initially skeptical about this, but realizing that Hinata has yet to eliminate Demon Lord Valentine or shown any signs of taking actions against him for a long time, he started to doubt her and his loyalty began to waver. However, since he was another simp for Hinata, he was hesitant to accept this fact, so the 3 Celestial Sages took advantage of his feelings and manipulated him into believing that Hinata might be controlled by Rimuru, and he has to kill the Demon Lord to clear Hinata's name. That's why Leonard deployed the Holy Knights in the anime, and he planned on eliminating Rimuru before Hinata reaches him, although in the light novel, he does state that if Hinata truly deceived everyone, he won't hesitate to kill her as well. Back to the present, when Leonard and his forces entered the Great Jura Forest, they realized the magical concentration of the area was relatively low, so they assumed that Hinata has indeed lied about the resurrection of the Storm Dragon, not knowing that Valdra has simply learned to control his aura. And with the evidence being more obvious, Leonard was beginning to have a hard time coming to terms with the fact that Hinata might have actually betrayed them in the light novel. That said, Leonard ordered his troops to begin setting up their wide-range holy field when they were ambushed by Shion's forces, and he thought that Hinata sold them out to Rimuru but still decides to trust in her, so he ignores the idea for now to focus on the battle. Before talking about the battle, we return to Hinata's group as they're still traveling towards Tempest when she will receive a telepathic message from Nikolaus informing her about the 3 battle sages participating in the Farmer's Civil War. And before she was warned about the 7 Celestial Sages, the transmission was cut off. However, in the light novel, after the transmission ended, Hinata would contact Luis to make sure whether or not he has deployed the 3 battle sages. But having learned that he has no idea of their deployment, Hinata predicts that the 7 Celestial Sages might be involved, so she wanted to teleport back to Lubelius immediately. And that's when her communication was severed by Rimuru, and she realized that the force field has been placed around the area that prevents her from using magic. And following this, they all sensed the fighting aura of Leonard, so they quickly headed towards the battlefield. Now regarding the battle, even though the Yomigaris should be having a difficult time against the Holy Knights due to the difference in threat level and strength, they were doing surprisingly well against the Holy Knights thanks to the support provided by the Cruel Knight. Essentially, the Yomigari will be using their body as bait to distract the Holy Knights, so when they let their guard down, another Yomigari or one of the Cruel Knights will then attack them. And because their blades are laced with a strong sleeping agent, the incapacitated Holy Knights will be restrained and rounded up by the Cruel Knight. Also, I was not only impressed by the teamwork of the Yomigari but the willpower as well, because they likely don't have the skill pain nullification, so they definitely still feel the pain of being slashed or stabbed. Granted, I think they probably had to endure even worse from Shion, so maybe that's why their pain tolerance and mental strength was so high. On a side note, the person explaining the sleeping effect to the Holy Knight was named Gobwa in the light novel, and despite her appearance, she was apparently older than Gopta. But I digress. By the time Rimuru arrives, the Yomigari has already taken down half of the enemies, and because Benimaru trusted Shion's instincts on the battlefield, they decided to ignore the fact that she completely altered the plan, since she was only supposed to hold the Holy Knights off. That's why Rimuru would simply observe the battle, and it was nice to see how competent Shion was at commanding her forces. Furthermore, her interaction with both Gobwa and Gobzo in the anime was the same, but it was still hilarious how she threatened to make Gobzo into a test subject if he doesn't follow her orders. And Shion would then notice Rimuru was observing her, but in typical Shion fashion, she completely misunderstands his complaints as praises, and she would run off towards the direction of Leonard and Guard. However, not long after, Hinata soon arrives on the battlefield as well, and not only was she surprised to see her proud Holy Knights being beaten to a pulp by monsters, she was confused why they are here fighting the Tempest forces, so she starts to analyze the battlefield, and she will spot Rimuru along with the 4 Margins standing beside him, realizing that he intentionally chose them to go against her Holy Knight captains. And her observations about the Margins were the same as the light novel, although Hinata does pay extra attention to Benimaru, stating that he is stronger than the Demon Lord Seed, and she probably needs to send Arnau along with 2 other captains just to handle him. Honestly, it would have been nice if they included this line in the episode because it highlights just how strong Benimaru actually is at this point in time. Also in the light novel, Hinata mentions that Rimuru's current aura was completely different from when she first fought him in the previous season, so she will approach him just like what we see in the anime.
思ったより早かったな。
But yeah, that was my explanation on episode 7, and there was surprisingly not a lot of cut content, although there was some interesting characters and information that were revealed. And I really enjoyed the overall pacing for this episode, but my favorite part was definitely seeing the hobgoblins getting some more screen time and the effect Tempest has on the surroundings. So what about you? What are some of your favorite moments on the episode and your thoughts as well? Feel free to share your opinions and comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this cut content video, remember to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button for more cut content videos as well. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.